So thank you for joining us today. My name is Brett Goodier. I'm the head of corporate and strategic accounts at a company called Vimeo, which I think some of you may or may not have heard of. What I'd like to talk about today is how we can use interactive video to create a better shopping experience. And for those that are wondering what on earth interactive video is, I've got some examples. Being a video company, we'll be playing some videos. So before that, I'd like to talk about AI. Actually, no, we're not going to talk about AI. Let's talk about video. I couldn't resist. It seems like AI is the buzzword now, the same way that 10 years ago it was cloud. So there's this tradition of put it at the front of your presentation. We're going to talk about video today. And I'm going to test the audience with their knowledge, recollection skills, and perhaps their age in a moment. First of all, who are Vimeo? We're the second largest video platform company. No prizes for guessing who the largest is. However, we're the largest ad-free, and we have the largest amount of, let's say, website traffic or hosted website traffic outside of that top player. We have nearly 300 million users and about 70 million in Europe, and something like 10,000 enterprise clients. So we've got a lot of experience around how video is being used in the retail space, and particularly the e-commerce space. And what I want to try and do is just use some of the insights that we've gained and make this useful for everybody. As e-commerce specialists, as marketers, there's a few things that I want to share that I'm hoping are going to be useful for you. Part of the insights that we want to bring to this conversation are the ones that we get from our clients. So I'm not putting these up to show off, I'm putting these up to demonstrate the fact that these are the types of companies that are using interactive video now in order to create a different and multifaceted route to market. So even if you are a brand, as you see on here, you have to have an e-commerce game that allows you to bring the right type of media to the marketplace to make sure you're capturing the right type of attention. So we'll feature one or two of these in some of the examples that I'm going to share today. Before I do that, this was the audience test. I think one or two people are going to recognize this. Does anyone recognize this image? Ah, okay. I thought there might be a couple. Now, for the rest of the people here, I'm in good company on this track because I saw Wonderman Thompson have been speaking, VMLNR. So I want to tell a quick story from the advertising world, and I will explain why it's relevant to video now. So this advert featured these two characters, Papa and Nicole. Father and daughter had this very kind of exciting lifestyle, this double life that they led, based on a heist story from the 60s, starring Sophie Loren. And this was back in the day when we had terrestrial TV, we had 5 channels, and this advert was almost like the pre-runner or the forerunner to what we see with John Lewis now, where everybody's, if they still watch terrestrial TV, eagerly waiting for that John Lewis episode to come out at Christmas. One a year came out, and in that 7-year period, the Renault Clio went from being sort of second, third in the market to being the best-selling car in the UK for 2 years running. And the advertising campaign that was built by publicists, won lots of awards, became the most, I think, voted persuasive ad in 1994 across Europe. You're all sat there thinking, why is Brett telling this story? It has nothing to do with e-commerce. Actually, it has a lot to do with e-commerce, because the role of a marketer or the role of an e-commerce specialist still is the same. The rules haven't changed. We're trying to create an emotional response or a behavioral response to something that's evocative, that creates a desire. We're trying to translate that desire into some kind of intent or purchasing intent. And we're also trying to then convert that into an action, right? So that was no different in the 1990s. It's most definitely the case now still. So that's the context I want you to have in your mind as we roll through this. So let's bring us up to current day. We work with a lot of marketers, and I'm just going to share with you, and there's a reason again I'm doing this, why heads of marketing are programmed the way that they are, and the reason that they invest in e-commerce is because they have three goals. And it doesn't matter whether you go on a LinkedIn survey, a HubSpot survey, or Gartner, you'll find, or whoever we talk to, these are the three overarching goals of any head of marketing, okay? Brand awareness, driving revenue, and delivering an ROI. Now, if I go back to that advert, that was all about brand awareness. Publishers threw millions at that campaign, and it sold a lot of cars. It sold 15 million Clios over a 2-3 year period. Who knows whether it delivered an ROI, and who cares? Because back then, nobody cared. It was all about driving brand awareness, and in the end, that would cascade down and turn into commercial reality. But it could also be other things. It could be having a better dealer network. It could be having a promotion campaign. But these are still the three goals that drive marketing now. The big difference is they have to do this at the same time. So anybody that's in the e-commerce world that is trying to pitch their wares to a marketer, I want you to have this in the back of your mind. These are the three things that they have to satisfy. I want you to think about something else as well before I talk about videos and show some videos. Marketers are feeling a lot of pressure. In fact, 48% of marketers feel that they can drive revenue. Ironically, their CFOs, 60% of them believe that they can drive revenue. So actually, CMOs have a lower opinion of themselves than CFOs do in terms of the expectation that's there. So again, why does that matter? Well, it matters because where marketing put their bucks, where they put their pounds, euros, dollars, has to deliver that return on investment, because it's driven right up to the top of the corporation at a finance level now in terms of making sure those budget dollars are spent well. So again, before we get to the videos, I just want to walk you through the economics of marketing. About 9% of revenue, global revenue across organizations, is pumped back into marketing. That's up a little bit from pandemic era, the pandemic days when it was about 6%, and it's not as high as it was pre-pandemic when it was about 11%. About a third of that goes on content. Typically, it's now the biggest category in marketing in terms of spend. And about a third of that goes into video marketing. So this is me making the case for video marketing. We'll get on to interactive in a minute. But there's a couple of other dynamics now that are happening. Video marketers, which is like a sub-segment of the marketing function, are trying to embrace short-form video. Now, the irony in this is the advert I just shared with you, or the advertising campaign, was a short-form video. It doesn't matter the high production values, it doesn't matter where it was shot, it was 30 seconds long, it aired during 15-minute breaks, and you watched it while you're having your tea with your mum and dad, or I did anyway. But it was a short-form video. That is now trending again, because there's so much long-form content, there's so much competing content, that actually people are trying to go back to short-form videos. If you think about TikTok, if you think about Reels, think about Google Shorts, think about the different media that people try and use to attract attention. The point here for everybody here today is this is an opportunity to educate marketers with dollars to spend on why video marketing is important, because they're still learning the form or the format. They're not relying on agencies the same way that they used to. They have to do it themselves. Add to the fact that actually the average person now spends 100 minutes daily watching videos that does not include streaming. So forget your Netflix series, forget whatever you're watching on your box set. They're spending this time on top of that. If you take millennials and Gen Zers, it's more than that. It's about 50% more. About 14 hours per week spent watching video content over and above streamed content. And this is the space that e-commerce specialists and marketers are trying to capture. but with one key difference. The advert that I shared earlier, the campaign, remember, had 5 channels. You had a captive audience. Now we have literally thousands of channels. Thousands of channels and a lot of content being pumped out and a real fight for attention, right? We call it at Vimeo the attention economy. How do I get the attention of the people I need to get that content to when I'm competing with so much other content, okay? That's the bad news. The good news is people are spending a lot of time watching content. So for me, this is the case for video or video marketing. Now let's make the case for interactive. So what is interactive? Well, kind of says it here, but it's very simply a piece of video content that contains other pieces of content that you can interact with, that are clickable, that allow you to go into other content areas, other assets. Why does that matter? Well, it's very simple. The numbers are pretty irrefutable at the moment. If you have an interactive video asset hosted on your website, it is going to have a better chance of reaching a complete viewing than a passive video. So actually, it's going to get about 1/3 more airtime, or dwell time, if you want to call it that. It converts at twice the rate. So if you think about being an e-commerce specialist, where we care about click-throughs, we care about engagement, we care about ways of capturing metrics, and by the way, that's the other big difference between now and 1993, is no one had any idea how many people were viewing those adverts. They did some polls from time to time. It was based on who was watching ITV at the time, and hopefully there was a lag factor of somebody buying a Clio at some point. To be fair, it was a car. That's not an impulse purchase, or shouldn't be. But now we care about metrics. We care about what assets are working for us best, which are the ones that are driving engagements, which are the ones that we want to invest more in. And we're getting 3 times more click-through rates. What does that mean? It means that if you make the asset interactive, you're going to make the purchasing intent that goes with watching that video go sky high. Okay, so this is the ability for that asset to translate into some form of intent. So remember the desire, intent, action principle, the old advertising principle. That goes through the roof. And that's why those big retailers we saw are getting really excited about using interactive video. So let's take some examples. So what I want to try and do with these examples is just point to some kind of tips and tricks and kind of established techniques that are kind of becoming the norm for interactive. And the first is, I'm hoping this is going to work, good, it does, is imagine you're watching a video, you're choosing to watch a video. There are things called hotspots that you can now attach to that video that allow the viewer to decide where they want to click in and potentially look at that garment, look at the color, look at the size, and potentially even buy. So you have a direct route from the video to the purchase. You're almost leapfrogging the intent piece. So that shoppable element is incredibly attractive to retailers, incredibly attractive to e-commerce clients. It's also what kind of allows you to be a little bit more creative with your assets in terms of how you want to create that desire response. So sorry to go back into the behavioral side of it, but what's the desire response we're after? Well, if you think back to the Clio ad, for those that remember, the reason people bought Clios is because they wanted to pretend they were bombing around Provence in France. They wanted that taste of that lifestyle. So if you think about product placement in the most traditional way, that's what we're trying to do with video, is we're trying to create an emotional response that leads to that intent, that leads to the action. What's another technique? Well, it works if it's immersive. So with this Starbucks example, it's actually a very simple video, but it has a thing called an overlay. That overlay just happens to be the store finder, right? So it means that you have a video asset with a very simple overlay that takes you to another piece of content. And that piece of content allows that viewer to figure out, oh, okay, I'm watching a Starbucks ad, it's pretty cool. I've got a first-person perspective on this. Where is my nearest store? Okay. So this idea of being immersive, if you think about it, very much speaks to what we're seeing trending at the moment. Why are immersive theaters very popular? Why are these pick-your-own-adventure type stories becoming really popular with adults again? Never mind children. And that leads me to the third kind of, let's say, tactic. Understanding the buyer journey and creating the option for a buyer to pick their journey. And so this example, we have a shop assistant working with a personal shopper. The person watching it is the shopper, and the personal shopper is bringing out the clothes, and we're using what we call branching, which is a technique where you basically create one video that hosts the story, and it takes you into a different video based on what you select. Kind of complex to put together in a way, but it's very, very cool. It also allows marketers to do something that actually should really be the fourth objective. Okay, so if driving revenue is one of them, brand awareness has always been the key, and obviously return on investment. The fourth is understanding customer buying journeys. What route are people taking to decide on a purchase? Because if you can map that, you can recreate that. So if somebody is buying more of the pink Nike top, well, apart from the fact that's going to reflect in sales, great, but we can do more of that, right? And that is the holy grail of marketing right now, is can I track how my buyers are progressing through my content? Can I figure out which content is working better than others? Now here's a more complex example, the last example. This is an Espresso ad where they actually do all three techniques together. There's hotspotting, there's overlays, there's branching. And so this host here is essentially acting as that, the host, and then you're picking your own route through the story. At any point, there are various hotspots that allow you to say, okay, I want to click into that particular coffee maker. Could be capsules, could be some kind of other service. There's an option to go and pick that product, put it in a basket, or to go off and look at other videos, other stories that you can go and explore. Quite product heavy, but nevertheless, it does all of those three things. Now, why is that important? It's important because one of the marketers' priorities is getting the activities and the content that they invest in to really work well with each other. And so what you're able to do with an interactive video is you'll be able to bring all your other content assets in together and actually get them to connect up. So you get like a multiplier effect on how that content is brought into play, as opposed to it just sat in different parts of your website. So this, again, for retailers, is a super cool way to get your buyer to interact with all your different content assets. So just a reminder, I don't think anyone's left, anyone's joined, so I'll just use this as a recap. We're going to get more completion rates with interactive. We're going to see double the conversion. And we're going to see 3 times the amount of click-through rates to whatever you want that to be. Could be other assets, could be a basket, could be a checkout. This is the key to why retailers really like this form, this media. And ultimately, we know it leads to higher purchasing intent. So I want to make this as useful for people. And I always find when I come to these things, I go to so many different talks, so many different stands. I kind of just want to crystallize what do I need to remember from this. So I think there's 5 takeaways. The first is, depending on what your roles are and what you do, marketing spend is back up. Big yay for that one. But video spend is rising dramatically. It is seen as the fastest growing medium or form in content marketing right now. So use that in your discussions with clients and with marketers. Direct them to the idea that video marketing is one of the key areas to invest in. Number 2, CMOs have to balance this, what I call holy trinity. They have to balance brand, revenue, ROI, and they have to do it at the same time. Every single thing they invest in has to tick these boxes. And we know why, because the CFO is going to ask them at the next board meeting or in the hallway, now that we're back in the office again. Number 3, we know that interactive videos drive engagement and they drive purchasing intent. The evidence is clear. Our retailers have told us. We've done our own evaluation as well. So that's something, again, to share with your clients. Number 4, if you're going to invest in interactive content, interactive videos, the 3 things that you have to think about is make it shoppable, make it immersive. Remember that advert I told you about, that almost sepia-toned Clio advert? We are trying to create an emotional response. Okay, and that's the one thing I want people to kind of take away from this, remember as marketers. That's what leads to purchasing. So shoppable, immersive, and connected. How can I connect up all of my different marketing assets? And the 5th one, which is unashamed, is the 5th takeaway, probably a bit late in the day today, unless you want a chai latte. We have a coffee machine on the stand, and I've never seen this before. It is a selfie coffee machine that you take a picture, puts it into the froth of your coffee, and you take a selfie with it. I've not tried it yet, but it seems to be pretty popular. So I'll take some questions in a moment, but if I can't answer them or we run out of time, please come over, please come and talk to us. Remember, desire, intent, action. That's the other thing I want you to remember. Thank you. Any questions from anybody? Yes, please.
We are out of time. Yeah. If you want to do it, though, if you want to do the last one. Do you want to do one?
We're not sure what we're doing with the Q&A, but we'll try. Okay, go for it.
All right, hi, thanks. So, all right, hi. So you mentioned that 9 times higher purchasing intent when someone uses interactive video. Do you have any data of how many will be converted to action?
I wish I had that exact data point because I would have put that one up there. It's a funny one, purchasing intent. What does it mean? I think the way it's derived is we look at the number of transactions and then relate that back to the original content that perhaps led to that, and they can kind of work out purchasing intent, but we still can't always nail down exactly how much more purchasing happens. So it's not our stat, by the way, that one, but we can get the source data on that, or the source on it. Thank you. Good question. Any others? All right. Come and join us at the stand if you want to ask more. I'll be around for a bit. Thank you, everybody.